Hello, good morning. Welcome to the Sunday Supplement. Coming up on today's show, the game, it must change. The former England forward, Paul Stewart, he's got some strong views on child abuse in football after Barry Bennell is convicted of sexual abuse. We'll move on to VAR. Yet another controversy during Manchester United's FA Cup victory over Huddersfield last night. And is it Uber and out for Alan Pardew after taking West Brom's players to Barcelona on a team bonding trip? Three guests with us this morning. I guess decided to drive themselves in, did they? Jason Burt?
Yes.
He's the chief football correspondent at the Daily Telegraph. Simon Mullock is the chief football writer at the Sunday Mirror. John Northcroft is the football correspondent with the Sunday Times. Morning to you guys. Good to see you as ever. Don't forget to tweet the show at Sunday Sup. The best will appear on your screen over the next 90 minutes. Let's have a look at some of the papers then. What a VAR. This is a farce up at Huddersfield last night. Juan Mata's goal ruled out for offside. We're coming on to that in today's programme. What's the matter with VAR? Juan Mata's goal, of course, that was disallowed. Manchester United did go on to win that game 2-0 last night. They're safely through to the FA Cup quarter-final. Will Paul Pogba be playing in it? Will he play against Sevilla in the Champions League this week? Jose Mourinho savaged him during the full time last week at Newcastle United after that defeat at St James's Park. We'll come on to Alan Pardew, of course we will later on. The taximeter, it's running for Alan Pardew. West Brom lost yesterday. All hail the Saints. They lost to Southampton. Lots of puns flying around. We've already used one. Uber and out. We'll get on to that a little bit later. Transfer story as ever. What else would you expect in the Sunday Express? This time it's Gareth Bale. Plus £100 million for Eden Hazard. Bale to Chelsea, Eden Hazard to Real Madrid, according to the Sunday Express. The Sunday Mirror. Simon's story, which you're coming straight onto this morning. This is Paul Stewart opening up and talking to Simon about his past, the child abuse, the abuse that he suffered as a young footballer and what can be done to safeguard children and young players in the future. The Mail on Sunday, new fears over child abuse. This is the Mail on Sunday special report. Adam Craft and Matt Lawton on that story this morning. But the man undoubtedly who led the way on it, and we should give him credit, of course, for exposing it, the scandal, is The Guardian's Daniel Taylor. He says that Manchester City, they ignored the warnings about another serial abuser in their setup. Yeah, let's start with that, Simon. You spoke to Paul Stewart this week. Could you just give us an idea of how, in the way that Paul, he's one of many that have been affected, but you've actually sat down with Paul yourself, and you've sat opposite him, but just how he has been affected and troubled by this scandal.
Affected deeply, really. The fact that, you know, it took him a good part of 40 years to come forward and reveal what he'd actually suffered and how he'd had his childhood stolen by a junior football coach, which is quite horrific. And kind of what resonated a lot with Paul was I used to actually play football against him in Manchester and played against the team that he played for when he was actually being abused. So it kind of brings it home to you how close these things, you know, can actually come. And I sat down with Paul, as you say. I think Paul wanted to speak out this week in particular because of the new TV deal. And he feels that while professional football clubs have kind of got safeguards in place, there are still a lot of chinks in the armour in terms of grassroots football. Most of the kind of safeguarding is done by people who volunteer because they love the game. And Paul, since he came forward and revealed what has happened, has set up a charity with 3 other former players who were abused: David White, his former Man City teammate, Ian Ackley and Derek Bell. And although they are victims, they don't want to be seen as victims. They want to be seen as people who are now taking the fight forward. And part of what they are trying to get is to get finance in place, for example, for safeguarding courses to be widely available. Those 4 guys have actually passed their safeguarding courses and they are now qualified to go out into the wider world and actually teach other people. But of course, when the actual kind of scale of it and getting so many junior football clubs in the country, that it's a huge project, and huge projects like that need finance. And I think Paul made the extremely valid point that in an era when there is so much money swirling around football, particularly at the top level, fabulous new TV deal just agreed with Sky in the Premier League. that maybe that clubs have a responsibility to take some of that money and help grassroots football root out these evil people. And the only way to do it is to have safeguarding measures in place so that they don't get access to our kids. And as you can see, Paul is very passionate about that. He just wants to ask the question, you know, can we get this cash? If not, why not? He speaks about, you know, maybe lottery funding, government funding as well. We've actually got a responsibility as a society to try and put these safeguards in place to keep our kids safe. And the point that Paul does make is it's not just a football issue. This is an issue that runs right the way through society. And there are other sports clubs, cricket, rugby, tennis, even, you know, kids who are sent to just dance school, that safeguards have got to be in place right across the board to, like I say, to make sure that these people don't get access to the kids.
Did you get a sense from Paul, was it a culture and a climate of fear, vulnerability as a young player and as a young child, why he didn't speak out earlier, that it's taken him until recently, where he's had the confidence rather than the courage to talk about it?
I think in that era, obviously the man who abused him, a football coach called Frank Roper, he obviously had connections to Blackpool Football Club. The team had connections to Blackpool Football Club. And when you're a boy of that age who's got ambitions to be a professional footballer, it's immeasurable the kind of hold that an individual like that can have over a young boy who's got that dream of playing football. So I think obviously what prompted Paul to come forward was the Andy Woodward revelations about Barry Bennell. And obviously that when Andy came forward and spoke out about what he'd suffered, that broke the dam. And we've seen, you know, countless numbers of people now coming forward. I think at the last count it was over 800 possible victims. They're the people who've just made complaints to the police. So we don't even know yet how deep this problem has run. You know, how many people are still out there who feel that the best way for them to deal with it is not to speak about it. You know, there could be hundreds more victims.
Yeah,
I think it's an interesting angle, actually, because the point Paul Stewart's making is that we think that safeguarding is better in professional clubs now, and obviously that's one of the cut-off points about 2005. I think they're talking about safeguarding measures being better. But these guys, these people, aren't just going to go away. They're going to be driven into different areas. They're going to look into different sort of parts of the game, of sport in general. So that's why this has to be much more broader than just the professional clubs. It must, and there are safeguarding measures involved in every, obviously, FA-affiliated football club, but they need to be deeper, they need to be greater. And I think that's a really good point that Paul's making, that, you know, you need to sort of think about the broader game and just away from the professional game as well. And actually, you know, just fundamentally remember, these are children. These are children. And we've got to safeguard them in every aspect of every part of sport and society they're involved with. And I think that's a really important point that he's making.
I think that's right. I mean, there's always a problem in society, I suppose, when you have a big case like this, that, you know, we think we've got closure because one big case has been tried. And I think Barry Bennell was convicted on because of 12 victims. Yeah. And as Simon said, there's possibly 900 victims out there that have been, you know, in the professional game, 300 clubs, 294 suspects, I think. And that gives you a sense of the scale. And we can't think that just because we've gone through one big trial that everything's all right, and that because professional clubs have done a lot with safeguarding, then the problem's gone away, because the big holes, as Paul Stewart I think is trying to say, is lower down the scale. What is happening away from the academies, what's happening away from our site, really. And it's always a problem with football, but surely we've got to try and use some of the money at the top of the game to try and help all of sport, certainly the game as a whole, but maybe beyond football as well.
Are the clubs doing enough, guys? Do the clubs do enough to protect their young players? Do they allocate and do they spend enough?
I've got to say that possibly now, yes, because the scale of the problem has been revealed, and they're now taking it seriously. But you only have to. But we will always think
our natural inclination there, Simon, would be the Premier League clubs, wouldn't it? Because they're the guys who are awash with cash.
Exactly
but
that.
We have to consider clubs at a lower level as well, who don't have the same kind of funding. Paul
made the point that he went to St George's Park to speak to football clubs, the safeguarding officers of all football clubs in the Football League and Premier League. And one Football League club that the officer that spoke to Paul told him that he actually still does it part-time. And this is a full-time professional club. I won't name the club, but they've got a fantastic academy system. They're one of the best clubs in terms of bringing players through, yet their safeguarding officer is still only doing it part-time and because he loves the club. And again, Paul made a great point to me that even on safeguarding courses, these people are so deviant, the abusers are so deviant, that there is actually a worry that they will go on to safeguarding courses to find out how is the best way to get around the system. So, you know, the kind of everything has to be so stringent. I mean, including, you know, checks with criminal records, etc., just to make sure that, like as I said earlier, that these people just can't get access to our kids because they're out, you know, they're out there.
Yeah. Manchester City as well, a fairly big inquiry, investigation ongoing there. What's the sense from what's the mood at that club about the past? Because of course it's very much a new era, and most of the people working and employed by Manchester City, most of the staff there, were not working there 30 years ago.
Yeah. Initially, I think the mood was one of absolute shock that this kind of thing could have actually happened at the club. Because the club did and has now, but back in that era had a great record of bringing young players through. I think the mood now, and has been for the last few months, is one of we've got to be open and transparent and do all we can to make sure, one, that the people who offended are identified. And obviously the problem, like you're saying, some of the people that we're talking about are actually dead. Two, that any victims that are actually uncovered are actually given the opportunity to come forward to tell of their experiences and maybe if they need therapy or any kind of help. And also, of course, moving forward to make sure that this kind of thing can't happen again. I mean, one of the things that Paul says is, you know, he's come forward. It was a difficult decision to come forward. What he would hate most of all now is to pick up a newspaper in 15 or 20 years' time and hear a similar scandal being reported. That would devastate him.
There's an interesting point made by Sam Wallace in his column in the Telegraph today. He talks about how a lot of these clubs now are holding their own inquiries, and rightly so, obviously. But what they need to do is publish these inquiries, the inquiry finding, the talk of transparency. That needs to be seen to happen now. That, you know, Chelsea, Manchester City, various other clubs who are involved in their own inquiries, their own internal investigations. Those have to be made they have to be made public. They have to be published. The problem is obviously the legal liabilities. Their lawyers will tell them, be careful what you do here, but actually there's a moral responsibility that transcends that. These are very wealthy organisations who can afford to take up whatever financial liabilities they have to as a result of these investigations. And I think the point Simon's making is that then allows the people who have been victims the opportunities to go to the clubs, to talk to the clubs and to seek what they need in terms of, as I say, therapy and also, you know, financial recompense if that's helpful for them as well. You know, in terms of their own lifestyles, their own environment, what they've had to suffer. You know, so I think the clubs have a huge responsibility to make all of that public. They really have to.
I agree with that, Jason. Of course I do. And it's easy for Manchester City to say, or easy for us to say about Manchester City because they've got unlimited funding and resources.
Yes, I know you're talking about going further down the pyramid, different clubs.
For example, Crewe Alexandra, one of the clubs, of course, that has been highlighted and is back in the spotlight after this episode. Can they fund it? Do they have enough? Do they have the resources? Do they have the manpower? Do they have the expertise and the knowledge?
Well, in terms of manpower and expertise...
Because no one prepares a football club for a scandal like this.
In terms of manpower, expertise and knowledge, then if they can't do it in terms of their own resources, then they need to be given those resources. In terms of the financial side of it, well, unfortunately, that has to be dealt with. You know, if they are liable, then they'll have to foot that bill. You know, they'll have to pay for it. Yeah. But I think in terms of the resources, I think football, and obviously there's no such thing as just football, but obviously the FA, the Premier League as well, the rich organisations, the organisations that have got the money, they need to help fund this. They need to help the clubs and take a corporate responsibility for what's going on. As football as a whole. You know, you can't just push it to one side and say, OK, we're doing our own investigation and so on. And some clubs haven't behaved brilliantly in this. Let's be honest. I mean, there was one club tried to make somebody sign a confidentiality agreement, and then obviously realised that was the wrong thing to do and fessed up on that. So they've got to now be absolutely right in what they do, and that needs to be across the board.
Yeah. I think you're right to bring up Crewe, though, Ash. I mean, I'm uncomfortable about Crewe in this. We're looking at Manchester City, we're looking at the Premier League clubs and the FA, rightly, but a lot of Bennell's abuse and the guys that went to court last week took place at Crewe. Crewe have still got the same chairman that was there at the time. Dario Gradi's been suspended, but it's unclear what his status is. Jason rightly talks about you've got to have transparency at clubs. You know, we're not sure whether Crewe are even having an ongoing investigation into this, because at the time they said they would let the court case run its course and then they'd investigate. So it's not clear what exactly they're doing, what they're looking at, and it certainly doesn't seem to be the facility for their ex-players to have the kind of, I guess, treatment, for want of a better word, that Manchester City are giving theirs, where they're being interviewed. I know somebody that's gone through this, you know, with counsellors in another room ready to help them if there's issues that come up in all of this, and they're being heard. It's not clear whether Crewe are doing any of this, and just because they're lower down the pyramid, we can't let them off the hook, to be honest. I think we've got to ask questions.
Yeah, no, we certainly have. Yeah, difficult subject to start with this morning on the Sunday supplement. Barry Bennell sentencing tomorrow in the Liverpool Crown Court. OK, next up, we'll talk about VAR. More controversy yesterday during Huddersfield's defeat against Manchester United in the FA Cup 5th round. OK, lots of stories around yesterday. Some tough decisions for sports editors to make last night. The Daily Star, they did go with the VAR controversy at John Smith Stadium last night at Huddersfield. Juan Mata's goal ruled out for offside. Jonathan was at the game. He's so important these days that he doesn't do his own quotes. Ian Whittle did them in the Sunday Times this morning. But you were at the game. Talk us through... I watched it on television, but talk us through the live action as it happened. Walk us through Juan Mata's disallowed goal.
That's important, because actually watching it live, there's a very different experience to watching it on TV.
Okay, so it's 2-0, puts the ball in the back of the net, game over.
So just before half-time, United are winning 1-0. Ashley Young centres, Mata goes around the keeper and scores. Now, in real time, it looked like it was just onside. The Huddersfield fans around the press box, they seem to think it was onside, no complaints. You then saw a TV replay, and again, it looked like it was just a sort of marginal onside. Most importantly, the linesman, Matthew Wilkes, brilliantly positioned, right in line, a couple of yards away from Young, kept his flag down, and therefore it was given as a goal. And then the fun started, because you saw Kevin Friend, the referee, did the old VAR signal.
Did that feel immediate?
Yes, it did. Well, yeah. I mean, he hadn't taken the play back to the centre circle, so it happened pretty quickly.
Okay.
And then you got into 2 minutes of him with his hand listening to the VAR, slow hand clapping around the stadium. The two managers were both sort of commiserating with each other. And then, of course, he chalked the goal off. And I think what gave it greater impact, just because it was before half-time, we then went to the TV studio, where they showed the pictures that were provided to them by Stockley House, by the Premier League's feed, which the VAR referees are using. And we had this ludicrous television picture of not just sort of squiggly lines, not straight lines, but lines that weren't even sort of flush with the lines on the football pitch. It just sort of lacked all credibility, and we were told that these were the graphics that were used to make the ruling. 7 or 8 minutes later, the VAR came back and said, no, actually, we had the correct pictures, and we saw something with correct lines. And essentially, they did get it right, technically, because when you saw the correct lines, by about half a kneecap, Mata was offside. But was it a clear and obvious error? Well, this is it. So what was uncomfortable about it, and what Mourinho complained about, although, you know, he'd won the game, so he was more smiling than furious, was that the VAR is only supposed to advise the referee if there's a clear and obvious error. And after all this process, after all these minutes, all these replays, you could still debate, really, whether he was offside or not. So I can't see where there was a clear and obvious error. And David Wagner's point, and he was actually more annoyed about it than Mourinho, even though the decision had gone in his favour. You know, he's one of those, he's from the Jurgen Klopp school, football's all about passion. He just said that moment killed the passion of the game, it killed the emotion of the game. And, you know, now here we are talking about the technicalities of TV pictures after what was a brilliant cup tie. And, you know, I sort of, it was a little bit like deflating the game, taking the air out of a balloon at a key moment. I mean, I think VAR did get it right, but the process was so unsatisfactory and they appeared to go against their own protocol that it's left us now with questions rather than answers, and the VAR is supposed to give us answers.
Simon, you were there as well, weren't you, last night? The problem I've got with it is this is the world's oldest cup competition, the most prestigious cup competition. It's branded as that. It survives because of that, because of its history. And yet we're using new technology in, oh, maybe this game we can use it, maybe this game, oh, we can't use it here because they don't have the facilities. Why is VAR being used in the FA Cup and causing such embarrassment?
Well, I mean, clearly at the moment it's just at the experimental stage, and they're trying to discover.
So you can experiment in the the FA Cup, so just experiment.
It's one. I think with any kind of new technology like that, there has to be an experimental period to see actually does it work or not, and if it does work, how we can kind of make it more streamlined in terms of speed of getting the decision made. The thing last night, and again, I know this is a criticism that's been made about VAR from day one, is the lack of information inside the stadium. And it's a case, it felt like a case last night of, OK, you 25,000 people, talk amongst yourselves while we kind of decide whether it was a goal or not. So it was a complete lack of communication. I saw the TV photograph. I mean, it looked like a skipping rope. It didn't look like a straight line, it looked like a skipping rope. Yeah. And what I find crazy about it is, I think if you're going to make these kinds of decisions, you have to have as much information and the best information that you've got if you are the VAR referee or the assistant VAR referee. And the best pictures last night were actually the pictures from the TV company, because there's more angles, there's better angles. And I think last night that was it Swarbrick?
The VAR,
He was working with information that wasn't as clear as what TV viewers were actually seeing at home.
And you could argue that nobody had clearer information than the linesman himself, he couldn't have been better positioned.
Correct, and you know, it literally was a fraction. That obviously the key to it all is, are we getting the decisions right? And at the moment, the decisions do look like they are the correct decisions. But
well, would you have given that goal?
I would have, because, as I say, in terms of the protocol, it wasn't adhered to. But what I would say is, at the moment, it feels like that we're getting the correct decisions more by luck than actual good judgment, and that can't be allowed to continue.
Jason, one of the other issues that I've got with it is the disconnect. So, Swarbrick he's in a ivory tower in Stockley Park, watching the game. He's not involved in it. And you mentioned Klopp when he said that you're losing the impact. You're not living through the match. What are they doing there? Because in other sports, the key official in this instance is actually at the ground. He's at the stadium. He's at the arena, is living through the game instead of being disconnected and away in a.
I mean, they will argue
in a television studio.
They will argue that's the very point of it. Is that, you know, he needs to be disconnected in a way, but actually, as you say, I think it's actually damaging. It's causing a real problem. I mean, the two big issues obviously are the lack of communication. I mean, everyone is just looking around, watching some guy pressing his finger to his ear, thinking, "What's going on here?" And obviously, you know, the time it's taking. It's just taking far too long. I mean, they've got to speed it up, and they've got to get better technology in place, and they've got to deploy more resources. If they're going to do this, and we already talked about the Premier League being so wealthy, they spend all this money on goal line technology. If they're going to do this properly, they're going to have to do it properly, and that's going to take a huge investment. I fundamentally am in favour of VAR. I think that the tipping point for me was last season's League Cup final, when Southampton scored a perfectly legitimate goal. We watched one replay, and you know it's a goal, and it's been ruled out for offside, and it was not offside. That can't happen. You can't allow that to happen. You can't then have the match officials being sort of pilloried for getting the decision wrong when everyone else has got information, technology that's not available to them. So if we're going to have technology, if we're going to have all these video replays, if we're going to have so many camera angles, if we're going to have so many matches covered, then they've got to give the people who actually make the decisions the technology as well. But they've just not got the right technology at the moment, and they're not using it well enough, and they're not using it quickly enough, and they've got to speed it up. And I think there is a real issue around information around the stadium. What information do you give the people in the stadium? Clearly, they don't think football fans are mature enough and will behave themselves well enough to sort of be given that information. And that's what it's about, isn't it? And that's quite a sort of arrogant or quite a sort of condescending approach to take towards football supporters. So you've got to give people more information as to what actually is happening in the stadium, because everyone is so confused. And but I think fundamental problem is it's taking too long. You know, I think it's just. But just one more point. Sorry. You talk about the cup game. I actually think this is the right environment to do it in, because the cup tie only affects the two teams on the pitch. Yeah. If you do it in any other sort of environment, you're affecting the whole league, or the other. There's an impact on league positions and so on. I think this is just a cup tie between two sides who are on that pitch and know the rules. So I think it's only those two sides that are affected. So that's why I think it is the right environment to do it in. But
yeah, okay. But my point is the integrity of the competition. Well, okay, we're going to have to say.
But you're not affecting the integrity of the competition, because one team is still going through, and it's not. I understand what you're saying, because.
Well, Sepp Blatter. Okay, so okay, I know this is controversial, but Sepp Blatter's the purist in him said, okay, so all forms of the game will be refereed and officiated in exactly the same way. So all forms. So whether that's the World Cup final or your Sunday morning.
That's not true, though, is it? I mean, you don't have fourth officials. You don't have.
But the purists in us would say that every game has to be refereed and officiated in exactly the same way, right?
Well, yes, but that doesn't happen anyway, does it? I mean, you don't have fourth officials at Sunday League games. You don't have guys behind the goals at certain games. I mean, the games are officiated in different ways at different levels already, aren't they? I mean,
the fourth official. So, okay, the referees behind the goals in the Champions League fixture, for example, that's every Champions League fixture. It's not. We can get them out to the Emirates. Yeah. We can get them to Stamford Bridge, but we can't get them to, I don't know.
Well, my argument would be that with the Champions League fixture in a group game, that affects the four teams in the group with the FA Cup tie. I'm
not deliberately giving you a hard time.
No, it's fine. No, but in an FA Cup tie, it only affects the two teams on that pitch at that time. It only affects those two teams. What then happens after that? One of the teams is going to go through into the next round. Well, that's not going to affect anyone else, is it? I mean, it's only those two teams on the pitch at that time. That's what I think. I mean, it's not perfect, but I think that's why this is the right environment to trial it on.
But it should be all FA Cup games. Sure, if it's going to be in one competition, it should be all games in that competition, should it not?
I don't necessarily think so. No, I mean the technology doesn't exist in Yeovil and various other clubs to have all the cameras to do it.
But it does affect the draw, because the draw has already been made for the quarter-final. So
that's a different argument. I understand that as well, and I think that's wrong fundamentally. Why are they doing the draw before the round is complete? I don't understand that at all. But even then, it doesn't make any difference. You're going to play one of those two teams, aren't you? Yeah, but you'd prefer to play, let's say, okay, Rochdale against Tottenham this afternoon, and you're in the FA Cup quarter-final. Who realistically would you prefer to? But you're fundamentally...
Who's got the better chance of playing in a semi-final?
You're then suggesting that VAR is going to favour the bigger team. That's what you're suggesting, though, saying that.
Well, no, what I'm saying...
Because it could be that Rochdale score a goal that's allowed through because of VAR, and Tottenham go out. But you would rather play... If you've got a shot at playing in the semi-final, you've got a better chance if you play Rochdale. Obviously, yeah, but that doesn't mean that VAR is going to favour Tottenham, does it? Come on, guys, help me out here.
I think what illustrated the madness of it all last night was that the manager who, if you like, was punished by it all, Mourinho, laughed about it, and the manager who... That's
because he won.
Yeah. I know, it's true.
But then he's furious. The Sun's goals pull out, so he's furious.
Well, I didn't see. I didn't see a furious.
No. Mata was annoyed, actually.
Mata was quite annoyed, which shows you, because it takes a lot to get Juan Mata wound up. But the manager who benefited from the decision was actually saying, you know what, this isn't actually working. So I think that kind of illustrates that it's far from perfect yet.
Well, I would say is if managers are going to, and the VAR is a problem. I think fundamentally it's the right thing to do. Yeah. If managers are going to complain about it and say we shouldn't have it, it's affecting the integrity of the game, the periods of the game, don't complain about referees then.
Well, I think Mourinho made a great point last night. Mourinho made the point.
Well, don't complain about referees then.
Mourinho made the point last night that
you can't have it both ways.
He was asked the question, should this experiment be persevered with? And he said that decision should be left with the referees. If they want help if they want help, then we should persevere with it.
Yeah.
If they don't want to be criticised by people in TV studios who have seen 10 replays and managers, then we should persevere with it. So, and I think he's right. I think that the referees should have
do want it.
Yeah.
The referees do want it.
OK, let's come up with a 3-point action plan. Sorry to spring it on you, but we'll get 1 point each. What's the biggest fundamental change that has to take place for VAR to gain acceptance in English football?
Transparency all day long. You've got to hear the conversation that's taking place between the referee and the VAR.
In the stadium?
Yeah, you have to hear it. That has to be broadcast.
Like that conversation of the tannoy?
Well, no, but on TV.
Oh,
and you need the replay to go alongside.
But what about people in the stadium?
You can, well, OK, but that's... I think broadcasting on the tannoy would just be a bit odd, wouldn't it?
Yes.
But, you know, if you could, fine. I mean, it's all about transparency. So I think we need to hear the conversation like we do in cricket, and I think we need to see the replays that are being watched by the VAR, because it's all about giving us confidence in the officials.
Right. Number one, transparency. Number two.
Well, can I just go back to that? The problem is that not all grounds have big screens. True. So I think that the grounds without the big screens, I think certainly you've got to... If ground with a big screen, let's see the replay. If not, you've got to communicate, and there's got. I agree. I think we should hear the conversation.
I had a plan for this 3-point. Sorry, it was going to be decisive. It was going to be bang, bang, bang.
1 and 1A, isn't it?
Yeah. OK. Number one, transparency. Number two, come on.
Number two, I think that the VAR officials have got to be armed with the best possible footage, and that means taking the footage from Sky or BT or whoever are televising the game, because you've got so many camera angles. You are then armed with better information, and you're therefore able to make better decisions.
OK, love it.
I think speed it up. I think it's going to be much faster. I almost think you have a cut-off point, so if you can't make a decision in a minute, then it's not proven, and that's it.
Point four, get rid of it altogether. Only joking. OK, next up, we're going to talk Paul Pogba missing from Manchester United's side to play Huddersfield yesterday. Will he play against Sevilla in the week in the Champions League? We'll tell you next. Welcome back. Just a reminder, with us this morning, Jason Burt, Simon Mullock and Jonathan Northcroft. The papers, back page of the Star, lots to choose from after yesterday's action. The Star, they go with VAR. The boys, Simon and John, were both at Huddersfield yesterday to watch Juan Mata's goal, controversially ruled out. Transfer story in the Sunday Express, as usual. Gareth Bale on his way to Chelsea. Eden Hazard on his way to Real Madrid. Alan Pardew. Jason's looking forward to this chat. That's coming next. You all right?
Yeah. Fine, yeah.
Uber and out. Lots of puns after the week. And what a week to forget. All hail the Saints. Southampton winning at West Brom. The meter's running. Of course, it's running for Alan Pardew after that defeat yesterday. We're coming on to this man right now, though. It's when we need... well, we'd love Martin Tyler on every week, but we'd love to pronounce this headline on the back page of the Sun. It's Pogba. Missing yesterday from Manchester United's 2-0 win at Huddersfield. Cried off with a mystery illness yesterday morning, Simon. It was quite entertaining before the game because Mourinho said, well, he's ill, I don't care when he comes back. But he went a little bit further in the press conference, didn't he, when he was asked about Pogba?
He did. I mean, Josie's obviously kind of bristling at the suggestion that he's part of the Pogba problem because he doesn't play him in his favoured position that he excelled at Juventus. Playing sort of in a midfield three, coming in from the left-hand side, and Jose was obviously in a good mood. He'd won the cup tie, so the Pogba absence didn't kind of cost them anything, cost them the game. And Jose made the point. I mean, I said earlier, he sounded like one of the robots off the Smash adverts. Pogba was playing number 8 in a 4-3-3, and he emphasised that Pogba was going to play in his favourite position today. And has missed the game. The thing that struck me yesterday about his absence is he ill? Well, you've got to take United's word for that. But if you're a conspiracy theorist, which I am, Manchester United are a club who are extremely secretive about team news. Alex Ferguson, for example, famously used to ban journalists for doing injury stories because he felt that they were arming the opposition managers with information that he didn't want out there. Now, before lunchtime yesterday, there was a tweet on the Manchester United Twitter feed saying that Paul Pogba is ill. Now, that's never been done before, and it's things like that get people kind of their antennae twitching a little bit.
The other point on that, Simon, was that Phil Jones, who played against Newcastle,
Yeah.
Where was the announcement about him?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't a tweet about him missing the game, was there?
Exactly.
Apparently he's injured as well.
Now, obviously, Mourinho is keen to put the lid on suggestions that there's a problem between him and Pogba. Now, you would think that maybe that tweet was designed to kind of give you an early warning that, you know, there's no rift between the manager and the player. He's got a genuine illness.
Do you think that was a directive from Mourinho yesterday?
Well,
so he's cried off, he says he's sick, he's told the doctor tells Mourinho, and Mourinho says, right, OK, publish that.
I'm pretty sure that they would not have put that out without the manager's permission. So, yeah.
I mean, there was more or less a statement on the club website, wasn't there? They had a story up before lunchtime about something that they purported not to care about. But the other thing that struck me, you raised it there, Ash, was Jose was quite clear about how he'd heard from the doctor. I think he wanted us to know this, that he didn't at any point say he'd spoken to Pogba. And in fact, he sort of suggested, by saying I don't care, that you know, he's a million miles from his thoughts. But he did want us to know that he'd heard from the doctor. And I think that puts Pogba a little bit on the spot, because it just lets us sort of see the process a little bit. And I can't think, as Si mentions, of that happening with other players in the past, certainly not at Man United, who are so secretive.
And he also suggested that there was, you know, he trained properly the day before, he was in the team and everything else. And there's no suggestion that he was under the weather, or, you know, he kind of knew that he wasn't feeling great. So I think, he, you know, it's quite clear where he's coming from on that.
Yeah.
Well, he's embarrassed him as well, isn't he? Because Mourinho in his press conference on Friday made it clear Pogba's not playing well, but he's playing tomorrow at Huddersfield.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And also in that press conference on Friday, I thought it was quite interesting when he talked about how, you know, it's wrong that we're saying we're going to sell him. Well, I'm not sure anyone's been saying that they're going to sell him. The issue is about whether or not he's happy at United and happy in the positions he's playing in. I think there's two angles to this I'm quite interested in. One is Pogba is sort of fundamentally right in that he is better off in a 4-3-3 on the left. That is where he played his best football.
The only thing I'm going to say there, Jason, before you make point two, is why has this just emerged now?
Yeah.
18 months into his Manchester United return, that all of a sudden he's not playing where he wants to play.
Well, you could argue that. Oh, I don't know. I think he's probably. You could argue that maybe he's been frustrated and it's come to a point where he's actually playing poorly. And if you're playing poorly and you're frustrated, and it might reach a point where actually that's it. You've probably had enough of that situation. The second point I was going to make was there is a real problem in football with the indulgence of players, and the whole Pogba thing, the whole Pogba shtick, as it were, is just far too great. It's far too big at Manchester United. What Pog back, the whole return, the whole video, everything. It's that kind of indulgence of a player. So give them the impression that they're so special, that they can almost say, "Oh, I want to play." You know, and I think that is an issue. You've got these two things running in parallel. Where I think he fundamentally has a point in that he is better off in a 4-3-3. I saw them play Everton. Turn of the year, and he played on the left, and he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. So if that's his best role, then try and accommodate him in his best role. I know why Mourinho's not playing him there, because he doesn't trust his defence. He wants to play a 4-2-3-1. He wants two holding midfielders in front of his back four. He doesn't trust them. And also that's his default position at the moment, Mourinho, isn't it? He doesn't want to play the 4-3-3. But at the same time, you've got this kind of indulgence of football players. And we saw it even with Sanchez. Sanchez arrives at Manchester United, and he's playing the piano. What's all that about? You know, it's kind of like, you know, you signed for a football club. Why are you sitting there playing the piano and it's sort of in the middle of the stadium with your arms outstretched? And why aren't you sort of, you know, just getting on with it?
Well, we've also got Ed Woodward telling his...
And it's not just about Manchester United, by the way. I mean, Arsenal did the same with Mkhitaryan and with Aubameyang. I think there's too much of this kind of indulgence of players. Like, you know, this huge, big signing. This is the big special star. He's coming in. You know, this big social media sensation.
Anyway. We've also got Ed Woodward telling Man United investors on his conference call how important social media has been, how
many more hits
driven
they got than Neymar or whatever.
So that's telling players how vital they are in terms of the marketing of a club. It does fuel this whole cult.
I mean, I think it's fundamentally okay, but I think there is a problem with it in that are you then feeding the ego of the player too much? I think there is an issue around that as well. That's why I have a sort of slight problem with it.
I mean,
with the position that's come up, his position in the Manchester United side that's been talked about so much this week. If I go back to some of the Premier League greats in central midfielders, Patrick Vieira, Roy Keane. If we want to go back to another era, Graham Souness, all players who played in the centre of midfield. Could you envisage a day where they ever said, that's not quite the right central midfield position for me. I need to be just further, just slightly. Just if you move me 5 yards to the right, I'll be a world beater there. Could you envisage any of those three saying that to their manager?
Never, ever.
Why not?
because I feel that they were players, and I'm not saying Pogba isn't, but they were players who would sacrifice themselves for the team. Roy Keane famously took the ultimate sacrifice in terms of a football player by being booked in a European Cup semi-final and having to miss the final. Mourinho made a great point last week that Pogba is kind of heralded as this potentially great box-to-box midfielder. Now, box-to-box midfielder has to do work in both boxes and in the central areas of the pitch. At the moment, he's not doing, certainly wasn't doing his defensive work, as we saw when they played Tottenham at Wembley a couple of weeks ago. Mourinho gave him instructions from the touchline. Pogba didn't adhere by them, so he was off straight away. And I think Mourinho's kind of taking this challenge on, and clearly he wants Pogba to bend to his will and play wherever he's asked to play. That's what great players do. I don't understand this. Clearly Pogba's best position is wide on the left. That's where he feels most... Sorry, left of a three. That's where he feels most comfortable. But great midfield players can play anyway.
Who's in the great Manchester United dressing room with Keane in it? Scholes, Giggs, Gary Neville, those boys, among others. That dressing room would police itself, right?
It would.
Who's policing the Manchester United dressing room now?
Nobody of that ilk, and that dressing room took a young Ronaldo and moulded him and told him to cut out the diving, told him to cut out the tricks. It was Ferguson, but it was the dressing room as much as anything else. And there's nobody doing that now. I think the elder statesman's Michael Carrick is a very nice, sort of quiet guy. He's not going to be shouting at anybody.
But as he's not playing, he's probably losing a little bit of power.
Yeah, he's just not. He's not a Roy Keane personality. But I think the most uncomfortable thing, and you mentioned those players, Ash, they're great players, and I don't think Pogba's a great player. He's not as good as them. Those are complete players who could dominate games consistently and do anything. And United have got a problem that they've marketed Pogba as this great player. He might become one, but he's 23, he can develop. He's amazing at some things on the pitch, but he's pretty flawed at others, and he's just not as good as some of those guys. He can't be a great box-to-box player because he's not as good as those guys.
That was the point I was trying to make, I think.
But if you spend £89 million on a footballer, do you anticipate, do we expect, and does Mourinho expect, this guy's he is ready, this is the finished article, this is a world-class footballer?
Well, it's not. I mean, it is like Jason said, he does need help to get there. Every player needs help to get there. So a manager can't expect any player just to completely do it by themselves. So yes, Pogba needs help from Jose, but it's not Pogba's fault they've paid 89 million for him, but it's also not unreasonable to expect him to try and improve in some of these things. And I'm not sure there's been much sign of him trying to improve in some of the duties that Mourinho's told him to do, the tracking back and so on. I do like Pogba as a player. I can see the attractions, but he's so far off the marketing hype at the moment that we've got this situation.
Jason, do you think their relationship is fractured? Be careful what you say here, because there's a story by a young, thrusting, up-and-coming journalist.
I saw the byline.
Don't believe a word he writes.
There's obviously,
do you think it's fractured?
There's definitely, I mean, well, at the very least, there are strains, aren't there? I mean, there are definitely strains to this. I mean, it's quite obvious there is an issue. You can tell by the way that Mourinho's talking about it. We've all spoken to people. There is an issue. It's a question of how deep that issue is, how damaged that issue is, whether or not it's... I'm not saying it's irrecoverable, but it is quite serious. I mean, he is your most expensive player, your biggest name, maybe with Sanchez. So you've got to try and resolve the situation. Mourinho's natural instinct is to put his foot down. You know, that's what he would expect to do, and he would expect Pogba to bow to his will. And I think probably ultimately he will. You've got to remember, this is a player who quite comfortably ran down his contract last time and left because he wasn't playing, didn't feel he was getting the right opportunities at Manchester United. So he's shown in the past that he's willing to, he'd put his own foot down and move on. So it could develop into a bit of a standoff, or it could just blow over quite quickly if he gets back into the team. What will be interesting is see how he's used in the team when he gets back in the team. Because I do fundamentally think, as I keep saying, I think he is right in where he plays, but I do accept your point as well, is that you can't just say, I'm going to play in that position. One last point on this whole thing. The box-to-box midfielder thing I find quite fascinating. Danny Higginbottom made a really good point.
He did, yeah.
Does that exist anymore? The football is so quick. How can you be a box-to-box midfielder in the modern game? You can't get up and down the pitch quickly enough. You've always got to be more of a specialist in that role. And I think that's a good point as well.
Actually, I want to ask you one final question, because you've been in this position of influence before and power. Is if you're a sports editor going into Monday's papers with the follow-up story from Huddersfield, Manchester United, do you go down the road of VAR again, which is what the boys wrote about this morning, or do you say, I want to know whether Pogba is... I want to know whether he's playing on Wednesday. What's going on with these two? I want to know whether he's playing on Wednesday, because Mourinho, by his comments yesterday, intensified the scrutiny around Pogba and his position at that football club.
I think you try and do both. But in terms of Manchester United, definitely Pogba, because the Seville game is so big. You want to know whether he's going to be fit and available to play in that game and whether he's going to be put into the team. But I think you also look at VAR and think, what are they learning from this? What is going to change because of this? But I think in terms of Manchester United, and probably the biggest story is Pogba.
OK, good stuff, guys. We're going to move on. We're going to talk Alan Pardew next. Is it over and out? Uber and out for Alan Pardew after that defeat against against Southampton yesterday. It's not been a good end to the week for Alan Pardew. West Brom and 4 of West Brom's players Uber and out. The Sunday Mirror's goals pull out this morning. What else? What could they possibly be referring to? All hail the Saints. Is it taxi for Pardew after the week that he's had, Jace?
It's been an incredible week, really, and obviously they lost the game against Chelsea, and the next day the sort of chairman, chief executive gets sacked, which is unprecedented, really, to be honest. I've never heard that before, especially mid-season. So clearly there's pressure on him in terms of his own position anyway. They then go away to Barcelona for this warm weather training, and then this happens, you know. And I think it was a mistake of him to play Evans and I've forgotten his name now, sorry, Gareth Barry yesterday. I think that was a mistake, personally. He talked about, obviously, he took the captaincy off Evans, he talked about how furious he was about it, but he still played 2 of the 4 players involved in the incident. And I think he should have left them all out and actually probably leave them all out until this is all resolved, because obviously there could be further action involved in this. But it's one of those sort of perfect storm things. When things are going wrong, they just go really, really wrong for you. You know, obviously we've got the teams who've gone abroad this week. You know, Liverpool have been abroad, and it's been like the Swiss Family Robinson. They've had a fantastic time, and everybody behaved themselves really well. And that's what happens when things are going for you. When they don't go for you, it goes like this. Some people are saying, oh, why did they go to Barcelona? So, you know, they should have gone somewhere more sort of, you know, quiet and sedate. Well, you know, Tottenham went to Barcelona quite recently, and nothing happened there apart from a couple of players getting a cold. But I think, you know, when things are going against you like this...
I mean, we've been to Barcelona, Jace, many times.
It's heading in one direction.
But it's not like people are partying in the streets 24/7, is it?
And this is the most ridiculous thing about all of it is, yes, you can blame the manager, yes, you can say it's the wrong thing to do, but the players have to take responsibility. And you're not talking about kids. You're talking about really senior players, and that is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So close to a game, but also just to be out doing these sorts of things anyway, mid-season. It's just, there's no excuse whatsoever. They've put out their apology for breaking the curfew. Obviously, they've partly named themselves because they are presumably to save the team much from being implicated in it. Fine, fair enough. But, you know, it's just not acceptable at all. And that's why I think they shouldn't have played. I wouldn't. If I had been the manager, I would not have played them. I think you've got to just say, look, you know, you've let me down. You're out the team. I'll deal with it in a while. You know, you're just going to stay out of the team now. Whatever happens, you're out of the team until this is resolved.
Did it show a lack of respect for Alan Pardew as the West Brom manager? Because the 4 players are all senior players, Simon. This isn't kids. These are 4 players, and certainly Johnny Evans, we know we like to think of as a responsible pro. Exactly the same for Gareth Barry, and we've dealt with him many times over our career, particularly with England. We have a fair idea about his character. So what does it say about experienced players doing that, going out, breaking the curfew, staying out until 5:30 in the morning, whatever time they got back? What does it say about their relationship with Pardew?
I think they have let Alan Pardew down, and I think they've let their football club down. I mean, one of the saving graces for West Brom this season has been their FA Cup form, and great result at Anfield, and then they go away, some warm weather training, try to prepare in the best way possible to face Southampton. The whole row breaks out about what they've been up to in the early hours of the morning, and allegations that maybe they've actually stolen a taxi. As you know, we've got to make clear that they are only allegations at this point. What I would say is that I thought there was a tweet yesterday that I thought summed it all up when I heard the name that Gareth Barry had been involved. and someone put out there, well, you can be sure that if Gareth Barry did steal a taxi, he would have put his seatbelt on and indicated before he pulled out, because that's what we think of Gareth Barry, a model professional, a guy who just doesn't step out of line. And Johnny Evans the same. You know, they're just regarded, and have been regarded for many years, as players who prepare in the right way and behave in the right way. So, yeah, I think they have let Alan Pardew down, and they've let West Bromwich Albion down. When you're 7 points adrift of safety at the bottom of the Premier League, not only have you got to do the right things, you've got to be seen to be doing the right things. And listen, everybody enjoys a night out, but to be out in Barcelona breaking curfews at 5:30 in the morning, I think I agree with Jason. I don't think that Pardew should have played those two players yesterday.
Are you entitled? It's a gruelling season. It's a long season. 7 points adrift. Okay, they've got an FA Cup tie this weekend, which they did go on to lose. But is there a point in the season when the players are entitled to let off a little bit of steam? Okay, we don't necessarily agree with what they did or their behaviour, and they've apologised for it. But should we cut the players, not just West Brom's players, but should we cut players a little bit of slack and say, you know what, these are still young guys?
Yeah, and we should cut Alan Pardew some slack for having the idea of, you know, letting them, presumably he let them have a night out and he took them away. That, as Jason said, when things are going right, that's quite a good thing to do. In fact, in a situation like this, they need to try something. So maybe relieving the pressure, just having a social trip. You know, there's logic in that, and we can be too prurient sometimes about sort of a player shouldn't be out at all at any point. It's the players that have let him down. It's not the going out. It's what the players have done with that trust that they've been given. And I think what's really uncomfortable.
But you know that 11 o'clock curfew means 12:31, doesn't it? I mean, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
Why does that though? It's 11 o'clock, and that's when they should be back by.
Let's take you back to when you were a little boy, Jace, and your mum and dad said, "We need you back home, Jason, by 11 o'clock."
I'm not a professional football player. You
No,
know,
but as a responsible young man, what time would you have got back?
11 o'clock.
Would you?
Your lips are moving, Jason. You're lying.
I think the difficult thing for Pardew is there's a contrast between what he's done at West Brom and those other managers that have arrived at clubs halfway through the season where they've galvanised their clubs, and it hasn't happened for them on the pitch. And if you think of those managers, you think of Moyes, you think of Allardyce, they've come in and imposed their personalities. They've been kind of hardline with certain players. They've whipped people into shape. And Alan Pardew's got a different management style. But this is like the very style that he tries to employ has now got him into trouble. He's tried to be nice guy, players' friend. We know that's how he manages, giving them trust, and it's blown up. And it's blown up with the most senior players in the group. It's not blown up with 3 or 4 young players who you could kind of write off as naive. It's blown up with the guys that he would expect to manage the dressing room on his behalf. And that's an enormous problem for him now going forward in trying to stamp his authority back.
And that's why they shouldn't have played.
That's
because they are the senior
exactly.
guys who are supposed to police the dressing room. So if you put them in the team, in the way that Arsene Wenger let Alex Iwobi play in that game a few weeks ago, you know, what message are you sending out to everyone else? And even more so when they are your senior players. They're coming into the dressing room, they're in the team. OK, Johnny Evans lost the captaincy. But even yesterday, he wasn't saying how long he'd lost the captaincy for. Take it off him.
Fergie would have sold one of them.
Take it off him.
Literally sold one.
I just don't... You've got to impose yourself on these people if they're going to behave in that manner. You know, and I think, as I say, what message are you sending out to the rest of the dressing room? Oh, OK, they've got a wrap across the knuckles.
They did. So, to give them any respect at all, Jace, on that point, so the 4 players came forward.
Yes,
to name themselves and to apologise. So they're contrite, they apologise, they put themselves in the firing line. All the attention on Saturday morning was all focused on the 4 players as opposed to the rest of the West Brom squad.
Yes.
And on the 4 bad boys. Do you have any respect for them for stepping forward?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely the right thing to do. Totally the right thing to do. And they had to do that for their teammates' sake as well, because obviously they're all guilty by association. And I think that was the one good thing they've done, is to come out and do that. And they deserve to be sort of applauded for that. But that's it. They've just done the right thing. You know, having done the wrong thing, they've done something right, and that's it. And that's why, again, you know, I would not have played them. No way.
It's you run your household with a rod of iron, don't you? I just get that feeling. You're ruled by fear here. Is Pardew going to survive this episode, this controversy? They've got Huddersfield next week. People talking about that as the game, and it probably is in terms of their ambitions to remain in the Premier League. It doesn't, of course, just come down to that game. but it is an important one nevertheless. Does Pardew survive?
I think Alan Pardew's future depends on whether he keeps West Brom in the Premier League. Certainly, if they go down, this episode will be used as another reason to make another managerial change. But if you can keep them in the Premier League, given that the position they're in now, particularly, they're a long way from safety at the moment. If he can keep them in the Premier League, then he's done the job that he was brought in for. So, it's kind of make or break, really, for Alan.
Do you get the sense, Jason, that he will get that chance, that opportunity?
I think what's interesting
until the end of the season,
yeah,
but it feels a little bit more. It feels more proximal, closer than that.
Yeah, when the chairman and chief executive go in the manner in which they went, then suddenly the attention is much more clearly on the manager, because they're saying, the owners are saying, we don't like the way the club's being run. And you're the guys who appointed the manager as well, by the way. So that puts him under an awful lot of pressure. He wasn't the first choice for the job, so that again puts him under more pressure. However, conversely, in a perverse way, it kind of, if he wasn't the first choice for the job and he got the job, then who else is out there that they can give the job to now? So, but then they'll also reach the point in the season where clubs just say, look, we've got to do something again. We're going down here, or we're going to have to do something again. So he's vulnerable to that as well. Well, the club would just turn around and say, right, we don't care who's in charge, we've got to make a change. And they'll just do it sometimes and panic, and we're in February still, so there's still a few months of the season to go, not many games. But, I think one more defeat, and you think, well, he's got to be under, a huge amount of pressure whether he survives the rest of the season.
Yeah, sure. OK, pressure certainly on Alan Pardew, particularly after the hijinks in Barcelona and, of course, their defeat yesterday in the FA Cup against Southampton. OK, next up, we're going to talk Alex McLeish, back in football, bounce back. He's got the Scotland job. More on him next. OK, we're all big fans of Alex McLeish on this table. Nice guy.
Very much so.
Yeah, he's got the Scotland job. He's returning to the national team as the head coach. Thoughts on the appointment? Thoughts it was taking him a while to get back into the game. He's wanted to get back in for a while. But is this the right job for him to go back into?
Yeah, I'm really pleased from a Scots point of view. And I'm also puzzled that it has taken him so long to get back in, because this is a guy with a very good record. Alex McLeish, let's not forget, won the Carling Cup with a very sort of ordinary Birmingham City side in terms of the profile of the players, beating a very good Arsenal team. Went on a record run with that Birmingham side, finished in the top 10. He got the Villa job, and I think that's what's given him a problem really in terms of getting future jobs. It created the sort of negative connotations, because going from Birmingham to Villa is a difficult thing to do. Went to Villa at the wrong time. It wasn't a great period, but actually in hindsight, in Villa's recent history, it was fine. He kept them in the Premier League. He didn't fail there in terms of Villa's history. And from his previous Scotland reign was really good. He was Scotland manager for a year. He had a win rate of about 70%. Got us to playoffs, did well. There was some bad feeling because he decided to go to the Premier League at that time. But I think you've got to be realistic and look at the difference in salaries in the Premier League compared to. Sadly, the SFA don't have a lot of money, and I can sort of understand that as a young manager, what he did. And I think he's experienced. He's very good at man management, which is a big thing in international football. He's very good at organising a team defensively. In Scotland, they're going to have to do that because we don't have Kenny Dalglish and Graham Souness anymore and all that sort of stuff. And I'm also just pleased it's brought a kind of sorry saga to an end, which, saw the Stuart Regan lose his job, the chief exec, because of a failed pursuit of Michael O'Neill, and Scotland sort of bouncing around between, various fairly uninspiring candidates like Malcolm Mackay. And I think Alex McLeish deserves a chance, and I think he'll do well. What
are the targets? What's realistic?
Well, the big target is 2020. So we've got the European Championships in 2020, where some big games are being played at Hampden. It will be Scotland's only chance to effectively host the tournament. We're not going to get one by ourselves. So we've got some big games at Hampden. Scotland have to be there at that tournament, and we haven't been to a tournament since '98. So that's the be all and end all. Now he's got 2 years to deliver that, and it'll be horrific if Scotland somehow don't get to a tournament they're hosting.
What
but
great
very
shame
Scottish.
that'd be.
Cheers, Ash.
I mean, the thing is with Scotland, obviously when they took the decision to get rid of Gordon Strachan, you would have hoped they would have had a kind of succession plan in place, because they've seen what Northern Ireland have done in recent years, qualified for the Euros. Wales the same, who kind of got to the finals of major tournaments, and Scotland have kind of been left behind a little bit. You would have hoped. I know they had a close brush with making the playoffs for the World Cup, didn't make it. Yet they just seemed right. We'll dispense with Gordon Strachan. And then they suddenly started thinking, who do we get in now?
Well, it seemed to be assumed they'd get Michael O'Neill.
Yeah.
There was a massive assumption. And then they didn't approach him, exactly. And then he didn't feel like they really wanted him more than Northern Ireland did.
I mean, depressingly, there seemed to be a fact of trying to save some money as well. Strachan went in October, and we're not playing till March, so coincidentally, there was no approach made for 4 months while a salary was being saved on. Sadly, you do think those sort of things about how the SFA have to run things, because it doesn't have any cash. And I agree with that. We should have had a much better process, but at least a decent manager's emerged.
Yeah. Good luck in the Scotland job anyway, Alex McLeish. I think you'll need it.
Yeah.
OK, let's move on. Let's talk Tottenham. Great week for them. 2-0 down in Turin against Juventus, last season's Champions League finalists. Just how good a performance was it to come back to 2-2, and how impressed were you by the result?
Extremely impressed, because I think Tottenham 18 months, 2 years ago may have crumbled after going 2-0 down so early. Echoes of Man United in '99 really. Very few teams go to Juventus, fall 2 goals behind after 19, 20 minutes, and then come back again. But it was a fantastic performance, and really it was for me it was a performance that summed up Pochettino and the team that he's built. Like I say, they could have easily crumbled after that start, but got on the front foot. Juventus did have chances to extend the lead again, and obviously they will rue that missed penalty. But Spurs have got a great opportunity now to get through to the quarter-finals, and you would expect them to finish the job, I think, at Wembley.
You think they will? Yeah.
I do.
I think it's 50-50 still, personally. I think I wouldn't write off Juventus. I think they're quite dangerous. But I think we're seeing a much more mature Tottenham now. The last few games I've watched them, also the North London derby as well, where it wasn't quite happening for them, but obviously they're far superior. But they seem to be more patient than they used to be. They don't panic, as Simon said. A couple of years ago, they'd have lost that game heavily. Yeah. Actually, they'd have gone 3 or 4 down, wouldn't they? Yeah. But they went 2 down, they rallied, and they went again. And actually, everyone was talking about how Juventus dropped off. I think they were forced that. It was Tottenham forcing them back. And all the outstanding displays across the pitch. Like Harry Kane, Dembele, Eriksen. Absolutely world class, really. I think some of these players at the moment, they're playing really well. The reaction was interesting in Italy, because I was over there before the game to do a piece with one of their players, with Panic, and he was very complimentary about Tottenham. But there was a clear assumption they were going to win. Juventus were going to beat them. They thought, well, Tottenham done well to get here and that sort of thing, and they're a young team and blah blah. They obviously clearly thought we were going to get through this tie. And I think Tottenham shocked them a little bit by the way they played.
I don't know what it felt like in the stadium, Jason, but watching it, Spurs just looked to have pace and intensity that Juventus couldn't match. And I thought that watching City in their game and Liverpool in their game, that maybe we are seeing this sort of rebirth of where the Premier League's just got kind of physical attributes and brilliant players, but just too quick. And we were talking about the PSG Real game, which didn't look as quick as the Premier League games that we've seen.
I'll come on to that in a moment, because PSG is Jason's pet project. But the actual attitude and the approach to those games in European football this week, massive result for Liverpool winning 5-0 in Porto. You've got the adventurous, cavalier approach that Tottenham had, brave approach that Pochettino talked about. Why has that changed in European football? Because we've always been used to the sort of cat and mouse affairs and cat and mouse approach.
I think finally, after a few years in the doldrums, English teams are now starting to impose themselves again on European opposition. A decade ago...
But normally, Man City would take, 2-0 in Basel, so OK, we're done there. 2-0, the tie's over. But they just went on and on and on. And in the same way that Liverpool were relentless, goal after goal after goal.
And I mean this in a nice way. Guardiola, Klopp, they're freaks in a way, in terms of they get 1 goal, they want 2. They get 2 goals, they want 3. They never call the dogs off. Yeah. They just want to... It's just relentless. We've seen that in the Premier League, and now we're seeing it in Europe. The difficulty was always English clubs replicating that Premier League form. And sometimes I think we fell between 2 stools, that we didn't play the Premier League way. We tried to take the Europeans on at their own game, and we weren't quite at that level. Now we're kind of English clubs are imposing their style on Europe. Like Jonathan himself were talking about the Paris Real Madrid game, and it looked a lot slower than when you were watching the English clubs in action. And it was relentless. Spurs as well, exactly right. Yeah. Physically, Spurs just overran Juventus at times.
I think there's a new breed of coach, as well, that just want to attack.
You're just trying to get out the PSG chat, aren't you?
No, go on. Go on. No, I was going to say, there's a new breed of coach, I think, who just will attack and attack and attack, and they want to score more and more goals. And Guardiola's idea is he doesn't want to be in a situation where he's 1-0 up with after 80 minutes, because that's too random. He wants to be 2 or 3 up, so the game's over. He wants to kill the game quickly, and I think Klopp's of a similar ilk, Pochettino's of a similar ilk. There are a new breed of managers out there who just want to absolutely destroy the opposition and get the game done and over and dusted.
And they all play the same way away as they do at home, these guys, don't they?
Yeah. OK, PSG.
Yes.
I was in the Bernabeu. It was a great game, great atmosphere, and Real Madrid got the result, having been a goal down. Where is the PSG project? Does Unai Emery have to win this game in the second leg?
Yeah, I think so. I think
to keep his job.
Yeah, and I think he has to probably go even deeper into the competition. I think he probably has to get to the semi-finals. I personally think he won't be there next season, come what may. I think they probably will make the change. I think it's not really worked with him. I'm not sure he's been a manager. He's a very meticulous coach. He's very much into video sessions and so on. He works with players in that way. And I think sometimes with some of these players, they find it quite hard to work with him. I don't think he's necessarily got the personality to deal with big players. And I think that's been an issue for PSG. They've got a fundamental problem, which you've got almost like a sort of two-speed team in some ways. You've got all these sort of superstars at the top end of the pitch, and then you've got some young players as well. And then there's a bit of a sort of disconnect in the midfield. And I think they've got some very, very good players, but they've invested so heavily in their attack that sometimes it doesn't look like a complete team in many ways. When they're good, they are brilliant. I mean, they are absolutely astonishingly good. And I think the whole Neymar issue has become a bit of a problem in terms of not necessarily internally, but I think externally. They're being told all the time, Neymar's going, Neymar's going, Neymar's going, there's a problem with this, problem with that. I'm not being funny. I'm not being funny. I have spent time with these players and I've seen them interact. I didn't see a problem. Honestly, I was in Qatar before Christmas with a few of the players and socially as well, and it didn't seem to me as if there was an issue between them. I've got to say, and I'm not being naive about it, because it wasn't a media environment, it was a more relaxed environment, and I saw them interact together. It didn't look to me as there's a problem, personally, but, people keep telling me there is a problem between Cavani, Neymar and Mbappe. I didn't see that at all, and the people I talked to at PSG say there isn't a problem. They do admit there have been mistakes. They do. The whole penalty thing at the start of the season was ridiculous. They understand that was a mistake that both the players and the coach made. And it will be an ongoing issue. What I would say is a lot of the stories saying Neymar's going, Neymar's going, Neymar's going are coming out of Spain. And why do you think that is? Because they can't get over the fact that he left Spain and went to France in the first place.
Would they let it, if Neymar stamped his feet and said, I just can't deal with it, I need the competition, I need the competitive edge, I want to play, I've got to go back.
That's the $64,000 question, or rather the 300 million euro question. I think they don't have to sell him, but I imagine if he really wanted to go, they would have to let him go, because why would they keep him? I think they'd have to just move on and get somebody else. I think that's what they would do.
OK, just quickly, because Chelsea got a big game this week. Barcelona, of course, on Tuesday night, Stamford Bridge. Messi's never scored against Chelsea, is he, in the Champions League? Will he this time?
Yeah, probably. He scored yesterday, they won.
We said he never scored in England. He scored at Wembley in the Champions League final against Manchester United.
I don't think he's got any problems scoring against anyone, Messi. I think Chelsea have had a couple of good results, but it's not a good moment for them. And defensively, they're not what they were. And I'd expect Barcelona to win that one.
Yeah, OK. Big week for Chelsea in the Champions League. Of course, they play Barcelona on Tuesday night and then Manchester United at Old Trafford on Sunday. OK, we've run out of time. Thanks very much to the guys. Thanks for joining us this morning. Thanks to Jason. Thanks to Simon. And thanks to John. OK, don't forget you can download the podcast from all the usual places. You can catch up with the show. It's on demand. We're back. We're next week for a Carabao Cup final special. It's live from Wembley Stadium. We'll see you there. Bye for now.
Sky Sports. Feel it all.